Jessica Marie Lunsford was just 9 years old on February 23rd of 2005. She had been at school and afterwards went to Bible class. She loved learning, hearing about new things, and she was even learning sign language at school. She had a busy day that day, and she didn't get home until 9 p.m. She lived in a mobile home with her dad, Mark, and his parents, Ruth and Archie. Jessica adored her grandparents, and every night Ruth would tuck her into bed. The night of February 23rd, 2005 was no different than any other night when Ruth would tuck little Jessica in for the night. Jessica's dad, Mark Lunsford, was home with her for a little while before she did go to bed. He loved to play with her, and she loved to sing karaoke. Her favorite was Shania Twain. Mark didn't stay there that night. He spent the night with his girlfriend and was due to return early the next morning to get ready for work, and so he could see Jessica before she left for school. It was around 10 p.m. when Ruth tucked Jessica into bed. At 5:45 a.m. the next morning, the 24th of February, Mark got home. And when he got home, he heard Jessica's alarm clock going off. He waited for her to get up, but when she didn't, and she didn't turn off the alarm, he went into her bedroom to wake her up for school. But Jessica wasn't there. Mark searched throughout the home and also outside, and there was no sign of Jessica. Everything looked normal. Nothing was out of place. Where could she be? Jessica's grandparents were stunned. They had no idea where she could be, as they saw her asleep in bed before they went to bed, and they didn't hear anything during the night. Their dog didn't even bark. But there was no sign of forced entry into the home. The front door was open, but Mark couldn't recall if he had left it open when he got home. Jessica was not the type of kid that would wander off alone or go anywhere without telling either her dad, Mark, or her grandparents. They then reported her missing to police. The police came and searched the area. They went door to door and spoke to family and neighbors. People in their mobile home community were questioned, but nobody knew anything. The only thing that Mark and Jessica's grandparents had to work with was that Ruth had said she put Jessica to bed at 10. So the last place and time that they saw her was 10 p.m. and Mark returned at 5:45. So something they believed must have happened between 10 p.m. and 5:45 a.m. As the investigation continued into Jessica's disappearance, with no sign of the 9-year-old anywhere, the police started to focus on sexual predators in the area. There happened to be one sexual predator, 45-year-old John Cooey, who lived in a trailer only 65 yards from where Jessica lived. In 1991, John was convicted of exposing himself to a 5-year-old girl, and he had multiple burglary convictions. Due to the laws at the time, Cooey received only short sentences, and he was not followed after his release. Despite his record of being a repeated sexual offender against children. On March the 12th, Cooey was arrested in Augusta, Georgia, and at the request of the Citrus County Sheriff's Office for questioning about Jessica Lunsford's disappearance. Due to the fact that he only was 65 yards from the Lunsford home and his criminal record, Cooey stated he did not have anything to do with the 9-year-old's disappearance. And he went to Georgia to find a job. He only heard about Jessica from the news on television. He was released from police custody after being interviewed. On March the 14th, 2 days later, Cooey's half-sister Dorothy Dixon let police search her trailer at West Snowbird Court in Homosassa. Cooey had lived at the West Snowbird Court with Dixon, her boyfriend Matt Dietrich, her daughter and son-in-law, Maddie and Jean Secord, and her 2-year-old grandson, Joshua. During the search, a blood-stained mattress and pillows were found in Cooey's closet in his room. And forensics discovered that Cooey's and Lunsford DNA were on the mattress. On March the 17th, Cooey was arrested and charged with the murder of Jessica Lunsford and transferred to the Citrus County Jail in Florida. He made an audio recorded and videotaped confession to having kidnapped, raped, and murdered Jessica Lunsford. Cooey said he had previously seen her playing in her yard and thought she was about 6 years old. On the night of the abduction, he said he had just intended to burglarize the Lunsford home, but saw Jessica and acted on impulse and took her. He entered the Lunsford home at 3 o'clock in the morning through an unlocked door, awakened Jessica and told her, "Don't yell or nothing," and told her to follow him out of the house. He admitted to raping her in his bedroom, keeping her in that bed that evening where he raped her again in the morning. Cooey put her in his closet and ordered her to remain there while he was at work at Billy's truck lot. On March 19th, police found 9-year-old Jessica Lunsford's body at the residence on West Snowbird Court in Homosassa. She was buried in a plastic bag in a hole approximately 2.5 inches deep and 2 feet circular, covered with leaves. Her body was removed from the ground and transported to the coroner's office. And according to the publicly released autopsy reports, Jessica had poked 2 fingers through the bags before suffocating to death, and the fingers had skeletonized. The coroner ruled that death would have happened, even in the best circumstances, within 2 to 3 minutes from lack of oxygen. On June 30th of 2006, a judge ruled that Cooey's confession was inadmissible in court because when it was recorded, the police had not granted Cooey's request for a lawyer. Therefore, the confession was rendered invalid and unreliable under the 5th and 6th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The trial court ruled that all evidence collected after the confession, including the recovery of Jessica's body, would be admitted, as well as incriminating statements made by Cooey to investigators and a jailhouse guard. Officials were unable to seat an impartial jury in Citrus County, where the first trial was scheduled. So the trial was moved to Miami. On March 7th, 2007, John Cooey was found guilty in all charges in relation to Lunsford's death, including first-degree murder, kidnapping, burglary with assault or battery upon any person, and capital sexual battery. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, and they had to recommend either life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. Those were the only 2 possible sentences available under Florida law. A week later, after about 1 hour and 15 minutes of deliberation, a jury recommended that Cooey be put to death. On August the 24th, 2007, Cooey was sentenced to death, in addition to 3 consecutive life sentences. Judge Rick Howard brought many in the courtroom into tears at Cooey's sentencing, as he discussed how the girl slowly died as her oxygen ran out. He caused a slow, suffering, conscious death, Howard said of Cooey. Her only source of comfort during this horrific experience was her purple dolphin. Another horrific detail that the judge noted, the girl was able to poke several fingers through the innermost trash bag before she died. The judge also noted that Cooey made crude, vulgar, and repulsive comments to police after his arrest regarding his sexual assault of the girl. And the judge quoted Cooey as saying the media was blowing the case out of proportion and that this kind of thing happens every day. However, on September 30th of 2009, before the sentences could be carried out, John Cooey died in prison of natural causes. Lunsford's killing sparked national outrage and led to stricter Florida laws regarding registration and supervision of released sexual predators. And this was a push led largely by her father, Mark Lunsford. Mark pursued new legislation to provide closer tracking of released sex offenders. The Jessica Lunsford Act was named after her. It requires tighter restrictions on sex offenders, such as wearing tethers, and increased prison sentences for some convicted sex offenders. Jessica's law refers to similar reform acts initiated by other states as well. Mark Lunsford became an activist for children's rights after the murder of his daughter. I admire his strength and his courage, as I remember following this case very closely as it all unfolded. But Mark Lunsford made a difference, and he made a difference in his daughter's name.